Hey folks, this is Editing Seth from the future. I just want to apologize that it's been such a dearth of episodes here in February. As you'll hear, I had a lot of work that I was able to do in February, but unfortunately that meant that I didn't get a lot of episodes released. So these episodes are coming to you from about a month and a half ago. I'm very sorry that it's taken so long to get to the editing on these. Now that I have time to edit, we should be back on a fairly regular schedule of episodes, and we've got some backlog to catch up on. So hopefully you guys will be enjoying a fair amount of episodes, and hopefully everyone can stay safe at home. Yeah, hopefully we can all get through this with books and podcasts and keeping each other sane. Stay healthy. Thank you, everybody, for supporting us, and we'll see you on the other side.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick.
The price of a ship.
The price of a ship, as you said. And our symbol is the threaded face.
Elephant.
Or elephant, as some people prefer me to say.
And remember, the price of a ship is a riot and or a war.
And it's probably Nynaeve's fault.
Of course it's Nynaeve's fault. I mean, the tensions were there already, but...
Yeah, I don't want to preemptively lay blame, but... Finishing her morning wash, Nynaeve toweled herself dry and pulled on a fresh silk shift reluctantly. Silk was not as cool as linen, and even with the sun only just up, the heat in the wagon foretold another scorching day. Besides which, the thing was cut, so she was half afraid it would fall in a puddle around her ankles if she breathed wrong. At least it was not damp with night sweat, as her discarded one was. Disturbing dreams had racked her sleep. Dreams of Maggedion that had woke her bolt upright, and those better than the ones that she did not wake out of. Dreams of Brigida shooting arrows at her and not missing. Dreams of the Prophet's followers riding through the menagerie. Of being stranded forever in Samara because no vessel ever came. Of reaching Saladar and finding Elida in charge. Or Maggedion again, there too. She had wakened weeping from that one. All just worry, of course, and natural enough. 3 nights camped here without a ship appearing. 3 sweltering days of standing blindfolded against that cursed piece of wall. That was enough to put anyone on edge, even without worrying over whether Maggedion was closing in. But then... just because the woman knew they were with a menagerie did not mean she had to find them in Samara. There were other traveling menageries in the world, besides those gathered here. Thinking up reasons not to worry was easier than not worrying, though. But why should I be anxious about Egwene? Dipping a split twig into a small dish of salt and soda on the washstand, she began scrubbing her teeth vigorously. Egwene had popped in nearly every dream, yammering at her, but she could not see how Egwene came into them. In truth, anxiety and lack of sleep were only part of what made her mood vile this morning. The others were such minor things, but they were realities. A pebble in your shoe was small compared to having your head cut off, but if the pebble was there, and the chopping block might never be, it was not possible to avoid her own reflection, and her hair hanging loose about her shoulders, instead of decently braided. Brush it how she would, the brassy red color never became less loathsome. And she knew all too well that a blue dress was laid out on the bed behind her. A blue to make even a tinker woman blink, and cut as low as the original red gown hanging on a peg. That was why she had on this precariously clinging shift. One dress like that was not enough, not according to Val and Luca. Clarine was at work on another pair in virulent yellow. And there was talk of stripes. Nynaeve did not want to know about stripes. At least the man could let me choose the colors, she thought, working the split twig furiously, or Clarine. But no, he had his own ideas, and he never asked. Not Val and Luca. His color choices sometimes made her forget the necklines. I ought to throw it in his face. Yet she knew she would not. Brigida flaunted herself in those dresses without a hint of a blush. The one was certainly nothing like any of the stories about her. Not that she was going to wear the fool dress without protest because Brigida did. She was not competing with the woman in any way. It was just that, if you have to do a thing, she growled around the twig, best you get used to it. What did he say? Elaine asked. If you're going to talk, Please take that out of your mouth. The noise is disgusting otherwise. Wiping her chin, Nynaeve glared over her shoulder. There's a lot happening in this chapter, and I feel like the intro doesn't cover it. It's one of the rare times that that's absolutely true.
This chapter is all about Nynaeve's perspective
Yeah.
and how wrong she is all the time. Lumen makes a good point that Nynaeve's inner narration is comedy gold because it's just full of contradictions and hypocrisy and all sorts of great things. One of the things I found interesting in this intro is just the description of brushing your teeth with salt and soda. I assume by soda they mean like baking soda.
Yeah. I feel like that's just old-timey toothpaste.
For me, that's something I didn't know about until probably this chapter, that like there was a toothpaste before there was toothpaste.
Oh, yeah.
Had no idea.
It was kind of cool that RJ included that. It's fun when he includes little things like that.
That's one of my favorite little world-building details in this particular episode.
Yeah, there's not usually much cause to talk about how Nynaeve brushes her teeth exactly, but
No.
it is kind of interesting.
It's like I've heard people complain, like, epic fantasy, nobody ever poops. Well, they never complain that no one ever brushes their teeth, but they usually don't.
That. I remember reading Harry Potter in high school and thinking, but don't they get into any more trouble? I mean, they have magic. Like, I wasn't even magic. I got into so much more trouble than Harry Potter. I mean, I guess
you were a different kind of kid.
I was definitely a wild kid.
And then the only other really important thing is, like, Egwene kept popping up in nearly every dream, yammering at her. That's weird. Wonder why that keeps happening. Why do I keep dreaming of my friend yammering at me?
That was
like,
kind of funny.
That's actually Elaine.
I feel like it serves to remind us how little Elaine and Nynaeve know about the dream.
About Teleron Riyadh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and she's even said, like, hey, I could potentially talk to you in your dreams, but, like, when you wake up and there's someone in your dream, you don't immediately be like, oh, that was real.
Right.
One of the things that I think Jordan never really addresses is, like, I feel like I forget my dreams. I feel like most people forget their dreams. Like, these people wake up and they're like, oh yeah, I remember every minute of every dream like it was real.
I almost never remember anything.
I think it would be interesting if they woke up and they're like, I remember getting this cut, but I don't remember the rest of what happened in Teleron Riyadh. Like, if there was some memory fading that happens.
I did kind of wonder about that. Like, would you remember being in Teleran Riyadh better? Because even though you're sleeping, you're really there, as opposed to a dream where you fall asleep and someone just talks to you in your dream. Like, would you not remember that well? Because it's just a regular dream.
So maybe Egwene's message doesn't come through as well as something in Teleran Riyadh.
Thindaren pointed out that, and I think this is almost always true, that people seem to be lucid when a dreamwalker goes into their dreams and talks to them. Sometimes they kind of have to be shaken out of it a little.
I don't know. I mean, Nynaeve isn't being like, oh yeah, we had a conversation in my lucid dream. It's like, I kind of remember this vague image of Egwene yammering at me.
I bet the wise ones have some sort of trick.
Well, and the thing with wise ones and dreamers in general is all of their dreams are lucid dreams. Whereas, like, Egwene doesn't have a dream that she is not aware of. Nynaeve and Elaine totally do. They're like, they have normal dreams.
Yeah.
Normal people have normal dreams, but they end up in Teleron Riyadh. They're probably not having lucid dreams there.
And they're only there for a moment. I kind of want to maybe talk a little bit about what Fen is saying, and just that if you're a dreamer and you go into Teleran Riyadh, you're obviously totally lucid. It's not, I call it the dream, but it's capital. It's a place where you go to.
Right.
But if someone's dreaming and a dreamer walks into their dreams, you're walking into their mind. So that's not Teleran Riyadh. That's the dream in their head in that case. And we do see it, I feel like, at a couple points in the series, either Egwene being warned or getting pulled in. There's a bunch of different occasions where she visits other people's dreams, and she's not as powerful there as she would be in Teleran Riyadh. Because this is in someone's mind. It's their dream, not Teleran Riyadh. It's not a equal playing field. You're in someone else's mind.
Right. And when she enters Gawain's dream, she, like, she, like, becomes Dream Egwene and, like, loses track of who she actually is.
Yeah. Which admittedly sounds fun, considering the circumstances, but dangerous in most others.
It does make her blush. If you lose your virginity in the dream world, do you lose your virginity in real life?
If it's in Teleran Riyadh, yes.
I think we had that discussion.
I guess? Because that's more real? I don't know, actually. Now that what's real? What does that even mean?
It's all in your head, Patrick.
Everything's all in our heads. Oh, I also wanted to point out, even though we've come away from the plot a little bit here, I just wanted to read, I guess, 3 days shut up with Elaine, except for when they went out to perform, was beginning to feel like 3 weeks, or 3 months. She had never before realized what an acid tongue Elaine had. A ship had to come. Any kind of ship.
I need out of here. And Elaine is often been the peacemaker between Egwene and Nynaeve, but now that Egwene's gone, and they're all cooped up together, they are just getting annoyed as fuck at each other. It's like...
Yeah, and to be fair, they've been traveling with each other for a really long time, and now it's not like they have like a palatial hotel room that they're staying in. It's a wagon. It's a small wooden box that they're just sitting in there stewing and stressing, and yeah.
And let's not forget, this is the Queen of Andor and Nynaeve, which is like arrogance squared. Just the wisdom of her village, like all that kind of stuff. Like neither one of them likes being told what to do.
True.
And Brigida's sort of ended up in the middle.
Kind of making fun of both of them. Yeah.
I was going to say she's taking on the Elaine role in that situation.
Yeah, and she gets her back up now and then. At some point she makes fun of Nynaeve to her face.
I think Brigida will never say anything behind your back that she won't also say to your face.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment.
Lumen, you say Nynaeve isn't an easy person to get along with. I think that's an understatement. She is highly effective and highly annoying. Sometimes, as someone who would be like around her, she would drive me nuts.
Yeah, as much as I like observing her, quote unquote, in the books, if I had to assemble a team to do something, I might put Nynaeve on it. If I had to assemble a team that I had to be on to do something, I might be less likely to put Nynaeve on it.
Oh man, this team has to be successful. Put Nynaeve on it.
She's going to be hard to work with, man. Like, she always thinks she's right, and she will argue with you.
Even when your way is just fine, too. She's like, no, do it my way.
That's true, Zapluka. You can always be like, yo, Nynaeve, can I get a heal?
I could use a healed back right about now.
Sounds nice. And over the next couple of pages, I don't have a ton to say. I feel like we covered most of this. Elaine and
dresses!
Yeah, there is a lot about clothing, which I'll probably mostly skim over.
I just have one quote. His color choices sometimes made her forget the necklines.
Yeah.
Just these things are so outrageous and absurd.
Yeah, and over the next couple of pages, Elaine and Nynaeve are talking, and they both realize they had like very similar dreams last night. They all had Egwene in them, and they kind of put it together like, oh, then it must have been real. Although, since the incident with Brigida, I think both are very hesitant to enter Teleran Riyadh again, even to seek out Egwene. Nynaeve even more so.
Well, they're scared of Moghedien.
Well, yeah, and
they know Moghedien's out there looking for them. Yeah. She kept saying she was really there, but I thought it was just part of the dream. And then they mention Rand's the Dragon Scepter, which is Shan Chan and Make, and they had the complete wrong assumption that it was left behind from the invasion, not that he traveled. They totally missed that he traveled to Shan Chan to get it.
That's true, and travel isn't really a thing yet, so that's another thing that they're just kind of ignorant to and doing their best to understand what's in front of them, but they just don't have all the information. I did have a bit that I wanted to read here when Nynaeve is thinking about how far she's come. I was a little excited to read, but as you all probably already know, I'm a big fan of Nynaeve and her plot arc, how she grows and changes. She's just in her head here. She's thinking. Sometimes it seemed to Nynaeve that she had forgotten why she had left the Two Rivers in the first place, to protect young people from her village who had been caught in Aes Sedai webs. Not that much younger herself, only a few years, yet the gap seemed wider when you were the village wisdom. Of course, the women's circle in Emond's Field had certainly chosen a new wisdom by now, but that did not make it less her village, or them less her people. In her heart of hearts, It made her no less the wisdom. Somehow, though, protecting Rand and Egwene and Mat and Perrin from Aes Sedai had become helping them survive. And finally, without her quite realizing when or how, even that goal had been submerged in other needs. Entering the White Tower, to learn how better to pull down Moraine, had become a burning desire to learn how to heal. Even her hatred for Aes Sedai meddling in people's lives now coexisted with her desire to become one. Not that she really wanted to, but it was the only way to learn what she wanted to learn. Everything had become as tangled as one of those Aes Sedai webs, herself included, and she did not know how to escape.
I love that summary of her journey over the last couple of books.
Dude, life happens, you wake up, you make decisions, right. You hope they're the best, and then you do it again tomorrow. Hopefully. That's what life is like.
Absolutely. And she is so far removed from her original goal of protecting the other Emond's Field folk. Like, where none of the other four are anywhere near her.
Yeah. One went home by himself, and the other two went way further, and they're probably never going back. As far as she knows.
And even the one who went back has totally changed everything about his life.
And the Two Rivers. Yeah.
And the Two Rivers, yeah.
It won't be the same place when Nynaeve eventually returns.
No, she can't take them back to her village because her village isn't there anymore. I am still who I always have been. I will help them as much as I can.
And I noted that too. She does. I mean...
It's one of the reasons I really like it when she goes back to hanging out with Rand and accompanying him and essentially becoming his companion Aes Sedai, is that's her time to really go back and help Two Rivers folks and make a difference in the last battle. And I feel like she finds her purpose. All this work, all this effort, all this learning that she put in comes back around when she helps Rand defeat the Dark One.
Cleansing Saidin, constantly harassing the Forsaken. She's a very important part of it, as Moraine might say.
Yeah, yes. Or as Min might say.
Brigida shows up in a moment, and Nynaeve thinks that she's Val and Luca just barging into their wagon. So she covers because she's getting dressed at the moment, and she's like covers her chest because she's not wearing anything. But it's Brigida, so she's not so worried about it. Brigida gives this little crack. She's like, don't fiddle with it. That's too obvious.
Yeah.
Just breathe deeply.
Because she did think it was Val and Luca, I wonder if she was fiddling to draw attention. I wonder if she was, like, pulling it down a little bit. Like, as, again, unreliable narrator. Jordan likes to give his characters unreliable narrators. And Nynaeve is constantly talking about how annoying Val and Luca is, how much she hates him, how much she hates his flattery. And yet...
So annoying. I hate all these gifts he gives me. And then I think at the end of the second chapter that we'll be talking about tonight, at the end of not this chapter but the next one, she thinks, well, Lan never got me a flower. What the fuck? You know, like...
Yeah.
And I feel like in that moment I was like, oh, she is kind of into him. All right.
She totally is. I honestly think that if she hadn't met Lan first, she would be totally into Luca. But she already has a prior commitment.
Oh, Christine, he doesn't like that. With Luca, I thought he was, what's the word? Unctuous. Oily. Smarmy. That's a good one. But that was like, because he's so forward, but at the same time, that's not the worst quality.
She comments repeatedly how attractive she finds him. He's a very good-looking man. Arrogant, but very good-looking. He's got very nice calves. Totally.
Well churned, I think, maybe, though.
So, I mean, just saying, like, you may find him disgusting. Nynaeve does not.
Oh, Steph, for sure. There's some problematic things happening there, but I think it's a good point Seth is bringing up.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's the right guy for Nynaeve.
Nynaeve is, a notoriously unreliable narrator. Like, just because she has thoughts about certain things doesn't mean maybe a little maddish in that way. Can I say that? No way am I going down there. People are stabbing each other over there. Why would I do that? Well, I'm just going to help this one dude out.
And people might crucify this, but if there are two characters on the male and female side that are most alike, I think it's Mat and Nynaeve. Because they're the most unreliable narrators on the male and female side. They are both very hypocritical. Not hypocritical is the wrong thing, but they often don't recognize their own flaws and accuse other people of having them. For example, who keeps teaching Oliver to grant women like that? You do, Matt. You do. Every single time. It's you,
soldiers.
Matt.
He's going to pick up some terrible qualities. Matt, no. You are one, though. Don't you see?
And with Nynaeve, it's like,
I'm not angry, Nynaeve shouted. Yeah.
Yeah, because she could have just gotten the boat.
Yeah, she could have just
paid
her way on there.
Yeah. She could have just gone down to the dock on her own. Or just, left a message with the dockmaster being like, hey, let me know when there's a boat. What dockmasters do.
I'm going to open a beer. Drinking an IPA from Sun River Brewing today. Called Vicious Mosquito. Yeah.
Southern Oregon?
I think so, anyway.
Nice. I've got some Starburst IPA from Ecliptic.
Oh, I've had that one before.
Got one left.
Tom and Julian show up. They're really beat up. Read, a trickle of red ran from beneath a wadded cloth Tom was pressing to his scalp, down across a fan of dried blood that covered his cheek and stained one long white mustache. A purple lump the size of a hen's egg stood out beside Julian's eye, and he held thumb-thick staff of pale-ridged wood in a hand roughly wrapped in a bloody bandage. Still wearing that conical cap, though.
It's called a fez. Fezes are cool.
They went to scout out the town, and the riot broke out right around that time, and they got out as quick as they could, but that's what happened.
We're in the middle of it. Well, somebody stepped on that red cap.
Gotten stomped on.
He must have dropped it, gotten crushed, picked it back up, thrown it back on his hat.
Megs, is that from Doctor Who? Okay.
Which, of course, this is also from. Spoilers. Which I think has some application. One of my favorite. That might be my favorite season of Doctor Who. I know a lot of people like David Tennant better, but
I never watched too much Doctor. Not against it. I don't know. I just never.
The new series that started in 2000? Gosh, a while ago. 5? Is that long ago already? Wow, it's worth watching.
Check it out sometime. I've sampled the Doctor Who's. It's good. Tom, you're too old to get yourself into scrapes like this. Leave over, child. I've had worse than this falling out of bed.
Nynaeve's like, I'm not going to heal you. I could. I'm pissed at you enough, but I'm not going to.
And after Nynaeve's done scolding them, they're like, yeah, actually, it's a really good idea that we did go because we just found out some really important information, which is mostly that the entire city's on fire. And if we don't leave now, we're probably all going to die. So...
Cussy you. Just a little important.
Might want to take that into
small
consideration.
Tidbits here and there. Everybody out. And of course, Luca's like, we're going.
Well.
I heard Aes Sedai blamed, White Cloaks, Trollocs, everybody but the Sean Chan. Yeah. I mean, they're kind of right about Aes Sedai. Probably should blame them.
I mean, it's Nynaeve's fault.
It's their manipulation.
The next thing I had was Brigida and Uno giving each other the eyeball. In Uno's case, literally.
And in Brigida's case, figuratively. She's definitely eyeballing him up and down. He's just ugly enough for her.
That's pretty good. Metal just said, well set up man, which I think is one of Brigida's lines from somewhere in the book. Was it about Uno?
Yeah, absolutely about Uno.
Okay. Well set up. That's could mean any number of things.
What does that even mean? That means nothing. Yeah.
But yeah, hot. I'm going to agree with Metal Deter on that.
Nobody thinks Uno's hot. I mean, okay, so maybe he's well muscled. I'm not going to deny you that. But that face. Oh, that face.
I think that's just what she's into. She's into the grizzled, tough.
Oh, totally. If Brigida's into you, you're ugly.
You kind of have to be grizzled. Yeah.
You be real ugly.
You look like you've been through some stuff.
Because that was the whole thing with Guidel Kane. Guidel Kane's ugly. She's into dudes who look a little fucked up, and it's. I don't think it's because she likes ugly dudes. I think it's because she is absolutely obsessed with Guidel Kane, and ugly dudes remind her of Guidel Kane, who she truly does love. She never sleeps with any of these ugly dudes. She just flirts with them.
I guess that's right. She doesn't sleep with anyone, does she? The whole time.
Not as far as I know, and as far as I can tell, she never has sex with any of these guys.
Though suppose, I mean, how long are we from the last battle? Was it like a year? Yeah, so
6
that's
months.
not that long. I mean,
No, she really isn't she really isn't in the real world for all that long.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like Metal Deter's point that she remembers her lives with Geidel Kane. So in a lot of ways, it's almost like she's being faithful to him. If that makes sense, that's a weird way of looking
Fair
at it.
enough. Yeah, no, that does kind of make sense to me. And 6 months wouldn't be a terribly long time to, like, cope with that, figure it out, and start dating to get out and be healthy again, you know? It just doesn't seem like she really had the time for that whole thought process.
Right, and not to mention, their relationship she probably remembers all the time they spent together in Teleron Riyadh.
She does still have all those memories, and that does kind of change from what I was sort of thinking about, I guess.
And she's got a lot of respect for the Borderlanders. 3,000 years and never a step back, nor paid for 10 times over in blood.
Yeah.
I know what you will do. She finds him an honorable man. That's what I think when she says well set up. I think it's more about his honor and his station in life, that he's proved that he is a good person and is loyal to his oaths. And that's something that impresses Brigida more so than his fighting ability or his attractiveness or anything like that. He's a leader.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think that Brigida's, like, particular about a specific body type. I just think she's kind of into dudes who have, like, been places and done things and lived the sort of life that she's lived. You know what I mean? Or otherwise they would be very difficult to relate to.
Boring.
She's dating some lord with silk ruffles sticking out of his jacket or something. It just wouldn't fit her.
Yes, it's not going to happen. Matt might be the closest lord that she could date.
And Brigida gives Uno that line, and Elaine gives him some flattery too, and that the group sets out. So the women just got done, Brigida and Elaine at least just got done flattering Uno. Uno shook his head. Well, if I'm to be cozened, I suppose I'll be cozened. But mark this. Massima's people found the ship. Now I'm looking up and pausing. Oh, that's okay, though. Seth stepped away. Cozen. Going with Cozen. Massima's people found the ship, River Snake or something like it, not an hour after it docked, but White Cloaks seized it. That's what started this little row. The bad news is the White Cloaks still hold the docks. The worse is, Massima may have forgotten the ship. I went to see him, and he wouldn't hear of ships. All he can talk about is hanging White Cloaks, and making Amadisha bend knee to the Lord Dragon if he has to put the whole land to the torch. But he hasn't bothered to tell all of his people. There's been fighting near the river, and may still be. Getting you through the riots will be bad enough, but if there's a battle at the docks, I make no promises, and how I'm to put you on a ship in White Cloak's hands, I don't begin to know. Letting out a long breath, he scrubbed sweat from his forehead with the back of a scarred hand. The strain of so long a speech without cursing was plain on his face. Just wanted to read that in a menacing way, I don't know why. He's like, yeah, flattery's nice and all, but we may be marching into a giant battle and we're all going to die. So, sure, flattery's nice.
I
Yeah.
realized when you said that, I have no idea what cozened means.
I feel like it's like coddled, like comforted, and
I was going to say, is it coddled? Just
I had to ask Discord how to pronounce it. I wasn't actually sure. I think I read it as cozened, but apparently it's cozened. Oh, cozened means deceived or tricked or obtained by deception.
that is not
so,
coddled.
Kind of like that, but he's using it in a way that he's saying, like, I see that you're flattering me to trick me into doing what you want me to do, and I'm going to allow it, is what he's saying.
I also like that Brigida's massaging Uno this whole time.
Oh, yeah. I didn't highlight that part, but yeah, she gives him a little speech and then starts rubbing his shoulders, and he's like, fine, I'll do it.
It's very flirty. It's very flirty. She's like, let me rub those shoulders of that well-set-up man. His shoulders are well set up. I also know that at this point, Nynaeve has just completely forbidden him from cursing at all. He's like, you can't do it a little bit. It's either all or nothing for you.
Galad is here in a moment to report all the same things. which is why Tom, Julian, Galad, and Uno are all there, because they were all trying to do the same thing, essentially. And they all managed to do it basically at the same time. Galad shows up.
All the girls are like, look at Nynaeve, you realized you caused this. You knew as much as I did. But there's definitely, I feel like there's that moment where they all sort of like, their stomachs drop and like, oh shit, this happened because of us.
I don't know if the men realize it. The women do.
Not yet.
Yeah,
the women realize it first. There's a point later, I think once Galad shows up and says, I got the ship for you, then all the men realize what happened. But before that, yeah, it's not until he shows up. But before that, Nynaeve's just like, please.
Nynaeve
oh God.
Starts yelling at Galad, but I feel like that's pretty quickly diffused. It was you, wasn't it? She demanded before he even reached her. You seized the river snake, didn't you? Why? River serpent, he corrected, eyeing her incredulously. You did ask me to secure you passage. I didn't ask you to start a riot. A riot, Elaine put in. A war. An invasion. All begun over this vessel.
Oops. I mean, it's just like, what was it, Franz Ferdinand? Like, the wars didn't start because he was assassinated. They were triggered because he was assassinated. But the wars started because of existing tensions. And those tensions have been escalating to the point where even a minor infraction is going to cause this kind of conflagration.
Nynaeve didn't just find one, she found 3 Gabrielo Princeps to shoot Franz Ferdinand. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And they all argued over who would shoot him first. And that's what started the war.
Lumen, I want to address that. You just said, I kind of want the show to make Nynaeve a Ta'veren. I've always sort of thought, like, why aren't the girls Ta'veren? Wouldn't that have made sense with all the balance and stuff?
Nynaeve and Egwene should totally be Ta'veren. There should be 5 Ta'veren, not 3. There's no reason why it's 3.
I like it.
They're
the
part
5,
of it.
Moraine and Lan, count as a Ta'veren as a duo. If they're in a place, they'll probably change the outcome.
And I also feel like this war, this conflict, is the payoff for all the lines about Galad doing the right thing no matter what. That, like, we've heard that so many times, and here we see him actually start a war
to get his sister a ride home.
Word, because that's literally the right, in quotes. Right. Literally. Just to get a ship. And it's like, dude, that's not... He's like, but I gave my word. That's the right thing to do, because it's my word. And it's like, yeah, this is one time where maybe you should let it slide a little bit. It's a little more complicated than correct and incorrect. That's not really... Doesn't apply to most situations. Yeah. There are shades of gray. And to give Brandon Sanderson a lot of credit, I think he does an amazing job with Galad's journey in discovering that in the last 3 books.
I like the guy he turned out to be. Didn't see that coming. I didn't.
One of the best reversals in fantasy literature is the Tricond brother reversal. Because when you first meet them, you're like, Galad, what a dick. Gawain, you're cool.
Gawain's pretty cool, though. Until...
But then, like, as you go on, you're like... And now everyone's like, fuck Gawain. But Galad, yeah, he's pretty cool. Total, I love that reversal. And if anything, it makes Gawain's terribleness a little more redeemable. Because it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense because it's the reversal of what you thought he would be. And even though they both lose to Demandred, there's some nice symmetry in their journeys.
Galad and Perrin's friendship is an interesting story.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I'd call it a friendship, but a business? Yeah, their relationship, certainly.
Mutual respect. That's the best way to say it, probably, yeah. I love when Galad says... I don't know what the Prophet wanted the ship for, but I doubt it was so you could take passage downriver. Nynaeve flinched.
Because that's exactly what the boat was for. Exactly. He wanted it for the same reason. There was no need for the fight. Both of you were trying to do the same thing. Give it to Nynaeve.
I'm just going to read more because some of this is just gold. Besides which... I paid the captain your passage while he was still unloading his cargo. An hour later, one of the 2 men I left to make sure he did not sail without you came to tell me the other man was dead and the Prophet had taken the ship. I don't understand what you are so upset about. You wanted a ship? Needed a ship? I got you a ship. What is the matter with them? Galad says to Tom and Julian. Why do they keep staring at one another? Women, Julian said simply, and got slapped on the back of the head by Brigida for his trouble. I just appreciated that, that's all.
Horseflies have a nasty bite. I was just smacking a fly. And he's like all uncertain, like, oh, maybe she really was. I love Julian, but Julian is one of the more gullible characters. Like, if Tom is not gullible at all, Julian is 100% gullible. I think they make a decent match, because Julian's always like, oh yeah, believe the Aes Sedai. And Tom's like, no.
Yeah.
Don't believe the Aes Sedai.
Tom's a little more experienced? Hardened?
Yeah. I almost would say more, I believe that Julian
Yes.
is a little afraid of Aes Sedai. And so is willing, especially when it comes to Aes Sedai, is much more willing to sort of take things on faith and do what they say without question.
The way I want to approach it is that it's almost more like a class thing. Like, Julian is more likely to be afraid of the local authorities or an Aes Sedai or anyone like that because he hasn't lived the life that Tom has lived.
Sure. And Julian comes from a very classist society of Tyr.
That's also true. A much more stratified society than... I assume Tom was Andorran, although nobody actually knows.
Morghese rose to power with nothing but the help of a court bard.
He certainly lived there for a long time, but I just mean we don't know where he's from.
Sure. I always assumed he was native Andorran simply because he was.
Write me that novel. Starts with Tom leaving his small country village.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, yeah.
That could be really good.
How does Tom become the house bard of
Well,
House
there would have to be kind of almost magical person that he gets his training from or something, you know?
Because he also becomes very politically skilled before he becomes the house bard. Because he's there, like, he basically helps Morghese rise to the queendom. So he definitely must have the skills and the abilities at that point to be politically manipulative. So what was he doing before then? The White Wolf has a mysterious history. And I'm not talking about Wolf Blitzer.
Yeah, that makes it even better. Oh yeah, Gray Fox.
Oh, Gray Fox, not White Wolf.
It's even better because it implies that he's a babe too, you know?
Oh, totally. And also, I like the connection to Matt. That if Matt's the fox, Tom is the Gray Fox.
Yeah.
Sort of implies he's just an older version of the roguish Matt.
I like that.
Can you imagine, like, Tom is who Matt would be if he didn't have, like, all the memories? If he just, like, learned to juggle and, like, gone on to become a court bard?
Yeah, I could kind of see it.
That, like, if he didn't get cursed with the memories and the general thing and didn't have the luck, you know, he had fast hands, no good playing, but you could see Matt being a bard. Especially the way he likes nobles, becoming a court bard. As much as he says he hates nobles, he likes being around them, because that's where the money is.
Right, which is why I could see him getting into it, like...
And then manipulating politics and stuff, just like, yeah.
I could see it. Never thought I'd have a job working with people until someone was like, come on, man, it's not that hard, you'll make more. All right. Just walk up to people, start serving drinks, whatever. You're in charge, you're the bartender. Don't worry about it. Oh, all right, well, I guess I'll try. Now I can hardly see doing anything else.
Did I mention my boss was like, hey, you could work at the bar, right? And I was like, well...
Yeah, I've told you that before. Seth, you know more about beer than I do. You could totally work at a place like Beermongers and just talk about, you know, how these different craft brews are...
Well, and here, talking about German beer. It's just a beer and wine place. There's no hard alcohol.
I tell this story pretty frequently, but I, like, had conversations with some of my coworkers, like, well, you know, I'm going to leave the dish pit, but I don't really know what I want to do, like cook or front house or... They're like, oh, you don't want to be a cook, man. Even the cooks are like, you don't want to be a cook, man. Like, oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
As a cook, I can agree with that. I've talked to a lot of bartenders who used to be cooks. I haven't talked to any cooks who used to be bartenders.
It's very rare that it goes in the opposite direction. But yeah, a lot of people start in the kitchen. Val and Luca shows up. We see him running around yelling at everyone to, like, pack their stuff because we have to get the heck out of here.
Because there's a riot. And they already destroyed one,
at least one
menagerie and killed the people in it.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because the important part of this is that it's not just any riot, it's the Prophets people rioting. So they're like...
Also, we know Maggedian is around, and we know that she knows the girls are in a menagerie. So I vaguely wonder if perhaps the reason a menagerie wasn't destroyed is that Maggedian didn't spur on the people to
She wants him alive.
A menagerie. Yeah, just a thought.
I can nod to that.
Because she's waiting for them on the docks.
Nynaeve and Luca have their conversation. I'm not sure how much to say about it, but basically Luca says, like, no, I didn't come to get my money, and yes, I thought you might leave, but I came to try to talk you into staying because I'm madly in love with you. At some point, Val and Luca's show will be the greatest the world has ever seen. Nynaeve says, stay? Why should I stay? I told you from the first we only wanted to reach Gildan, and nothing has changed. Why? Why, to have my children, of course. He took one of her hands and both of his. Nana.
Of course.
Your eyes drink my soul. Your lips inflame my heart. Your shoulders make my pulse race. She cut in hurriedly. You want to marry me? She said incredulously. Marry? He blinked. Well, yes, of course. Nope, he just wants to make babies. He's not interested in the rest. Just the making babies part, I'm pretty sure.
He's like, if we have to, yeah. I'm pretty sure he just wants to have sex, Nynaeve, and is not asking in the greatest of ways.
Oh my gosh, Lumen. I don't know what Lan would do if Nynaeve actually ran off with Val and Luca. I think he would just, like, have an aneurysm or something.
I think he just attacked the Blight. The whole Blight. All of it.
Last battle starts now. Yeah.
Pull out a sword. Melchior! Just attack some worms. Totally. He would cut a wide swath through the Blight. He would get damn close to Sheol. Like, what could actually take Lan out? Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good thing that, like, Moraine didn't die fighting a Forsaken or something, because then Lan would go on the murderous rampage and nothing would stop him. Forsaken, no problem. Can you imagine a rampaging Lan?
Gotta admit, it would have been pretty fun to read.
It would be. Like, Lan really trying to, like, go out full bore, taking out everything in his path.
Lucas sighed heavily. You are the only woman for me, Nana. Let other men choose boring flutterers with their shy sighs.
I have to wonder if maybe this isn't Jordan just, like, making fun of romance novels a little bit. Like, writing sort of, someone was like, I bet you can't include, like, a romance novel chapter in your book.
He must have intended for Luca to be, like, too much. Like, too much.
Like, over the top. Oh, totally. He is dramatic in every way.
But I think, and that, I mean, it does suit him in his line of work and all that. I think that at least some of these lines are probably real. They seem heartfelt. Like when he says, let other men choose boring flutterers with their shy sighs. A man would know he had to walk through fire and tame a lioness with his bare hands every time he approached you. Every day an adventure, and every night. The smile almost earned him boxed ears. I will find you again, Nana, and you will choose me.
And it's like, dude, no.
I know it in here. And he touches his chest. Okay, his approach, pretty bad. But I feel like a lot of the words he says in there are heartfelt.
Absolutely.
Like, I think he does really like Nynaeve, like, as a type. You know what I mean? Like, she's tough. He loves that. Like, knows that he wants to be kept on his toes, and he likes the idea that she's tough.
All right, so what do you think about this match? Luca, Fael.
Oh, man. I can almost see it.
Right? Because the sort of over-the-top, dedicated, flowery stuff, I think, the big arguments, she'd be down with that, like...
The grand displays which is something that Perrin's not very good at. He's not good at making a big display of something. He just says a few words.
No, the one issue with Luca is, like, he's not tough
Ferengi
enough.
Says, how's Luca's beard, though?
Well, that's a good point.
How about them shoulders? Fair enough, Ferengi, asking the important questions.
Physically, I agree. They may not be a match. I'm talking about emotionally.
That's what I was thinking, too.
I like here that she thinks Landman Dragoran's ring gift was a proposal, or she has decided that when Lan gave her the ring, that what it actually meant was that he was proposing. I love that little bit of logic. Fail has the same bit of logic, too. It's like, well, I know we need to wait a year, but technically, since we were traveling together, that's good enough, so we're getting married tomorrow.
I also liked how it was like almost the exact opposite of what happens between Avienda and Rand. When he gives her the thing, and she's like, "Is this an interest gift?" And he's like, "What's an interest gift? It's just a gift, dude." And
He's
yeah,
like, no.
Rand gives Nynaeve the ring, and he's like, "Just remember me." And then 6 months later, she's like, "He proposed." He doesn't know it yet, but
Yeah. But yeah, he proposed.
I'll let him know next time I see him.
I think there is something in every guy that wants a woman to just be like, yeah, we're dating now. Like, just deal with it. Like, and just be like, oh, good. Now I don't have to worry about this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that might be refreshingly simple. Might also be nice if we could have, like, formal Aiel customs. So it could just be like,
oh, God, yes.
you have been relationshiped. We followed the steps appropriately and spoke with the proper authorities. Done.
Something tells me it's not that simple.
Well, no, but,
I think relationships are very complicated in Aiel culture, just in a very different way.
Then all of her female relatives are going to try to kick your ass, and that's just part of it, so.
Right. And that's assuming your clan doesn't have a feud with her clan, or...
That is true, but it definitely seems a lot easier than being like, so, what are we doing here? When you have to have that conversation? It's complicated.
Well, you've done pretty well.
Yeah.
The next thing I have is Elaine's POV. Basically, after the Luca conversation, we switch over to Elaine.
Yep. I had Elaine talking to Sarandon.
And from here, I love, again, talking about Nynaeve's relationship with Luca. From her POV, when Luca comes near, Nynaeve stands up straighter and breathes deeper. There's also crossing her arms under her breasts. There's a lot of Nynaeve showing off her cleavage in this chapter to Val and Luca. And he put her in the dress, so it's not like he's not appreciating it. There's some heavy flirting going on. This isn't coming out of nowhere.
What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think is actually happening between Luca and Nynaeve here in Discord? I think she definitely appreciates the attention. But some part of me questions whether she knows she appreciates the attention. You see what I mean? Like, she likes it, but she's not conscious of that yet.
She said things like, but Lan is so far away, and I haven't seen him in such a long time, and, like, I don't think it's necessarily top of her consciousness, but I don't think it's unconscious. I think it's like, she doesn't want to admit it, but it definitely thinks it.
Nodding to that. I think everyone agrees. Next thing I have is Elaine talking to Sarandon, basically trying to convince Sarandon to come with them. They want to continue to pick her brain, and this, that, and the other.
They want to take her back to the White Tower as a source of information on the Seanchan. They basically want her as evidence.
And Sarandon's immediately like, well, I don't know what kind of rivercraft you have, but can it really carry my Seredet? And Elaine's like, no, we'd have to leave them behind. Sarandon's like, that's not happening. This is essentially...
these are my babies. I mean, elephants and people form very tight bonds. That happens a lot. And yeah, this is always her number one priority has been these animals, not anything else. Not herself, not the Seanchan, not the world around her. It's taking care of the animals.
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to draw one more parallel between Nynaeve and Luca flirting and Elaine and Tom flirting. That there's this, like, they both, and I think I've said this before, they both have guys that they are dedicated to and plan on marrying and love. But they haven't really had a chance to be out in the world and flirting in a way that is consequenceless, that has no consequences. Like, you've gone this queen who's been in the tower, the ivory tower, and everything she does is being scrutinized, and now she's this anonymous tightrope walker, essentially pole dancer, stripper. Like,
she could be whoever she wants to be.
Dude, she can be whoever she wants to be and flirt with this, this guy, and Nynaeve, who's been this wisdom and had to be in charge and could never relax, and then immediately fell into this serious long-term relationship that's now sort of a long-distance relationship. Like, it's nice to get the attention, even if you have no intention of following up with it. It's nice to know, like, hey, if I live this life, I have these options. I could be this person. People really do think I'm attractive. Nobody gets tired of hearing that they're attractive.
No. At least said correctly and from the right sources, but yeah. I totally support that. And I've brought that up about Elaine before when we were talking a lot more about the Tom stuff. But I think you could draw that parallel with Nynaeve too. They're both women who, well, although their lives are very different, where they grew up, what they were growing up to do, and all of that, but they were both growing up and being
leaders.
Yeah, they were both growing up being raised to be leaders, or more or less. And I don't think that afforded them almost any time whatsoever to possibly even think about what their sex lives might be like, dare I say it, other than outside of a marriage. And who knows if Nynaeve would have ever even been interested if she had stayed in the Two Rivers. Maybe. Maybe not. And so these situations we see them in where they're doing like profoundly stupid things in relationship situations, I can often just kind of write it off or forgive it because it's like, yeah, well, this is the first time they're doing this. It's literally the first crack at it.
I don't know. I was perfect at it the first time.
Right. I'm an expert at everything I try.
Again, my biggest problem with Wise Man's Fear. I'm so good at sex the first time, I am enchanted a fairy queen. Really, dude? Really? This better be an unreliable narrator situation, because otherwise, I ain't buying it. There's a fairly long conversation between Sarandon and Elaine, but I don't really have much to say about that, other than Sarandon's like, yeah, you're no noble. You might have claimed to be, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was kind of funny. Elaine gets upset, or basically toward the end of the conversation, she's like, just forget this, you're coming with me, and grabs Sarandon by the arm, and tries to drag her off to just come with them. But Sarandon caught her hand and twisted. With a wide-eyed yelp, Elaine found herself on tiptoe, wondering whether her wrist would break before her arm came out of her shoulder. I'm skipping a line or two. Elaine gritted her teeth. She would not ask for help. "Release me, Sarandon," she demanded, wishing she did not sound quite so breathy. "I said release me." Sarandon did, after a moment, and stepped back warily. "You are a friend, Morellin, and always will be. You could be a lady one day. You have the manner, and if you attract a lord, he may take you for one of his Asa. Asa sometimes become wives. Go with the light, Morellin. I must finish my work." She held out the goad for Mur to curl his trunk around, and the big animal let her lead him ponderously away. "Sarandon," Elaine said sharply. "Sarandon!" The pale-haired woman did not look back. Elaine glared at Brigida. "A great lot of help you were." Brigida was standing behind her the whole time. She growled and stalked off before the other woman could reply. Brigida caught her up and fell in at her side. "From what I've heard and what I've seen, you have spent a considerable time teaching the young woman she has a backbone. Did you expect me to help you take it away from her again?" "I was trying to do any such thing," Elaine muttered. "I was trying to take care of her. She is a long way from home, a stranger wherever she goes, and there are some who would not treat her kindly if they learned where she came from." "She seems well able to take care of herself," Brigida said dryly. "But then, perhaps you taught her that, too? Perhaps she was helpless before you found her." Elaine's stare seemed to slide off her like ice sliding down warm steel. "You just stood and watched her. You're supposed to be my—" She glanced around. It was only a glance, but several of the horse handlers ducked their heads away. "My warder. You were supposed to help me defend myself, and I cannot channel." Brigida looked around, too, but unfortunately, there was no one close enough to make her hold her tongue. "I will defend you when you are in danger, but if the danger is only being turned over someone's knee because you've behaved like a spoiled child, I will have to decide whether it's better to let you learn a lesson that might save you the same or worse another time. Telling her you were heir to a throne. Really, if you're going to be Aes Sedai, you had better start practicing how to bend the truth, not break it into shards." Elaine gaped. It was not until she stumbled over her own feet that she managed to say, "But I am." "If you say so," Brigida said, rolling her eyes at the spangled breeches. Elaine could not help herself. Nynaeve wielding her tongue like a needle, Sarandon stubborn as two mules. Now this. She threw back her head and screamed with frustration. When the sound died, it seemed as if the animals had quieted. Horse handlers stood about, staring at her. Coolly, she ignored them. Nothing could worm its way under her skin now. She was calm as ice.
perfectly in control of herself. Was that a cry for help? Brigida said, tilting her head. Or are you hungry? I suppose I could find a wet nurse, or... Elaine strode away with a snarl that would have done any of the leopards proud.
I love Brigida. She's such a wonderful addition to this group.
Is that a cry for help? Just hungry?
Are you a baby?
Oh.
Do you need... Oh.
Picked a fight and got beat up. Oh.
No, Brigida's wisdom is great. This is why we love her as a character. She's like one of the best B characters in the entire series.
Spent all this time telling her to get a backbone. Now that she shows you one, you don't like it? Seemed like she defended herself well enough. Guess you must have taught her that too.
Yeah, look at that. How about that? Which is foreshadowing for the kin, by the way. Stand up for yourself. Oh, wait, you're standing up for yourself. Crap.
Oh, shit.
I have been busy. Basically, I went from a period of unemployment to a period of having 2 jobs at the same time. So I've been at work for like 60-ish hours a week.
That's true. I also feel like I should fess up that I made a serious scheduling error last week, and so that was me. Set that a day.
Oh, that's right.
Carved out. And I just misunderstood totally. I thought it was going to be Thursday.
So we didn't have a lot of time, and we missed each other last week. So, and then that's just part of also I haven't been on the editing lately, just because I literally haven't had the time to sit at the computer and do the editing that I want to. So that's on me. But I think the biggest problem is literally when I work these physical jobs, multiple hours, day after day after day. Sometimes I get home and I think it was Monday night, I got home and laid down on the bed for a few minutes, woke up in my jacket, lights on around 10 p.m. Took my jacket off, took my shoes off, rolled back into bed, woke up at 2 a.m., peed, took the dog out, ate something, went back to bed, woke up again at noon when I had to get up and go to work at 1. And I just had this night where I had physically reached my limit. I had done all the work I could do, and my body said, yeah, you're going to shut down. And yeah, this is not permanent for me. This is just, I had an opportunity to work an extra job for a couple months. So it'll be February and maybe some of March.
Yeah, this guy is an old friend of ours, I'll just say.
Sure, yeah.
And he's
your old boss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
/ bartender.
Yeah, no, he's served me many
He was a
drinks.
bartender for a while. But has a job where he has to hire people. It looks like seasonal workers. It looks like every year. I almost tried to jump in on it, but then I realized I absolutely don't have the time.
I want to apologize. I have been temporarily crazy. And like I said, I would love... It's not that I don't necessarily have the time, but sometimes I get home and I don't have the energy to do Wheel of Time stuff. So,
well, don't beat yourself up about it. I mean, because I do that too sometimes, and it's just, if you worked all day, man... I try to write myself that ticket. It's awesome if you can get back to work after working all day, but if you can't, if you're having trouble making yourself focus, then just don't. It's better to wait than do a bad job,
Yeah, and no one wants to hear me be like, oh yeah, this is a good chapter. I guess Nynaeve's fantastic.
Guys, I'm just going to read this one.
Jordan's
Seth is sleeping.
Yeah, just my snores in the background. I don't know if you noticed, Patrick, but we changed up the channels again to just try and like simplify some things that were.
Yeah, I saw things just
Maybe.
being moved around and removed or combined, things like that.
And just a lot of people asking my opinion about things that.
Revamping.
Yeah, just revamping. But, that means oftentimes, like, I get this message where it's like, hey, what do you think about X? And I'm like, well, I have no idea. Let me spend 20 minutes looking into it, seeing what the deal is, and then forming an opinion, and then typing up a response. And all of that just takes up time and attention, so.
You know nothing, Randall Thor.
I really don't.
I think of that about myself all the time. That's why I'm saying it. Sometimes the cooks at work start asking me questions. They're like, this ticket, what does this mean? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Jon Snow over here. Whose ticket is it? I'll go find them. I just say that now.
I think today I hit my point at work where they were like, hey, can you do this thing? I was like, I don't care. Like, just point me in a direction and I'll move my arms in the way you need me to move my arms. But don't make me make any decisions, please.
I hear that, Lumen. Your whole life, you're like, wow, adults have money and cars and houses and property and responsibility. That must be so cool. Then you're an adult for like 6 weeks and you're like, oh my God, why didn't anyone tell me? I have to pay for everything. Yes, 1 star, 1 star. I might even just get mad and refuse to rate that app because it's awful. There's another thing no one tells you. On your days off, that's when you clean your house and restock the fridge and go to the bank and all that fun stuff. Me and Seth are blessed that this goofy hobby, I think, happened at a point in our life when we still had plenty of spare time, and then it turned into something that is quite a bit more than a hobby now, so at least we have that. Part of the reason I wanted to start recording early is because I wanted to tell you guys about this podcast that I have supported and loved for many, many years, that some years ago they stopped putting it out, but they restarted it recently. It's now called The Heart, but when I started listening to it, it was called Audio Smut. And it's not precisely what you think, but it is a podcast that's about sexual relationships, and it has a kind of focus on more modern type of relationships, queer stuff, gender stuff, and kind of tackles a lot of interesting problems. The heart, like in your chest. I really like it. They rebooted it.
Mermaid Palace Radiotopia.
Got some young folks. Yeah, it was one of the original Radiotopia podcasts. And the ladies that used to run it are now off onto better things, but they got these 2 new hosts, and I was worried. I was like, who are these girls? Like, are they going to do a good job, As good as the last 2, but I listened to the last couple episodes, and they are quite good. Like, as good as the old Audio Smut episodes that I remember. Thoughtful, and tackling problems in interesting ways. I just wanted to go tell everyone to listen to that. And because I thought that our listeners would probably like it. Check it out if you think you might be interested. Have you been watching Picard? Anyone watching Picard?
I have not.
Nah? Oh, you've been crazy busy.
I mean, I've been crazy busy.
You don't have Netflix right now.
No, I really don't.
It's not on Netflix, though. It's on CBS. Oh, Zep Luco. I started watching Altered Carbon a while back. It really interesting sci-fi. Cool concepts. I like that, Murtaugh. It's on Amazon Video in Australia with a VPN. I love you guys. We're computer people. Well, a lot of us are.
We're nerds. Nerds tend to overlap.
And if you're not, you're book people, and that's fine with me. That's cool. You don't have to be both. Expanse is one I don't think I watched, Obscure, but I think one of my regulars keeps telling me to watch it, or kept telling me to watch it. The series is set in a future where humanity has colonized the solar system. It follows a disparate band of anti-heroes as they unwittingly unravel and place themselves at the center of a conspiracy which threatens the system's fragile state of Cold War. That's cool.
I like the Belters. Honestly, I thought that the seasons got better as the show has gone on. I really didn't like season 1. I thought season 1 was like...
Well, hey, that's pretty unusual.
Yeah.
They often kind of drop off as people lose interest or whatever.
No, I feel like it's added complexity, and I really don't like Holden, the actor or the character. He's the main character. And so, like, once the show kind of got away from its main character and started doing a lot of side quests, I really, really enjoyed the show more. Yeah, everyone's agreeing. Everyone's like, he's a bland prick. Like, Holton sucks. Yeah.
Literally that.
No, I really... Yeah. Once I got over the fact that the main character sucked, I was able to enjoy it a little bit more. But that did turn me off for the first season or two, because he's in so much. And he's just like... He's a yelly actor. Like, he has one emotion, which is, I don't like this!
I don't know. I would say that I would go watch The Expanse anyway, just to check it out, but...
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?